I had my radio on in the car earlier today, and I heard President Obama make a brief press conference statement about the crisis in the Ukraine and Crimea. He spoke of conferring with our allies in Europe. And with Mr. Obama's track record on foreign affairs, it's a wonder that our European allies even pick up the phone when it rings. It just seems like not long ago, our commander-in-chief did some clumsy saber rattling toward the Syrian government. And when the Syrians pretty much thumbed their nose at Mr. Obama, he just seemed astonished. I mean, after all, he's the great Obama. Perhaps Syria just didn't understand. Mr. Obama is just so used to expressing his demands and having his admiring congressional friends giving him his way anytime he wants. And he was just absolutely set aback by the Syrian affair. So maybe he should just become a little bit more forceful with Syria. And he said, if you guys don't do what I tell you, I'm going to have to get nasty. Well, next came that awkward stepping over the red line. Syria extended their middle finger toward Washington, and our Chicago community leader turned president was backed into a corner. Do you remember who came to his rescue? Do you remember who gave our president a graceful way out of this predicament? That's right, Vladimir Putin. Good old Vlad winked at the Syrian leaders and he said, hey, come on guys, you've had enough fun. Tell him what he wants to hear. Give us a few of your chemical weapons and we'll parade them out of your country with fanfare for the entertainment of the Western press. And then we'll tell him you have plans to turn over the rest of them to us later. Let him go back to playing king for a day in his own country. In a week or two, they'll have forgotten about the whole affair. Yep, that's the same Vladimir Putin who Mr. Obama whispered to a few years ago that he would have more flexibility after he won the election for a second term. Okay. Mr. Obama, are you whispering to Vladimir now? Well, on March 6th, Mr. Obama said out loud, it was no whisper, and I quote, the proposed referendum on the future of Crimea would violate their constitution and violate international law. Well, I have to tell you, I am honestly pleased that Mr. Obama is concerned with international law. Mr. Obama went on to say, and again I quote, and that includes standing up for the principles of state sovereignty. The proposed referendum on the future of Crimea would violate the Ukrainian constitution and violate international law. Okay, now we are talking about both international law and state sovereignty. Just curious, Mr. Obama, does this hold true for other nations in other parts of the world? How about the shores of the Mediterranean? How about Palestinians lobbing rockets into residential areas in Israel? Does that violate any international laws? How about Palestine suicide bombers paying visits to Israeli hospitals and schools? Is this a concern? Are you, Mr. President, worried about defending the Israeli Constitution? Well, Mr. Obama went on to say, and I quote again, any discussion about the future of the Ukraine must include the legitimate government of the Ukraine. In 2014, we are well beyond the days when borders can be redrawn over the heads of democratic leaders. Okay, help me out here. Isn't Israel the legitimate government of Israel? Just asking. Isn't Israel under at least as much threat from an attack from the hostile Palestinians as the Ukraine is from Russia? Are you not indeed suggesting the redrawing of borders in that region over the heads of the democratic leaders in Israel? Let's be clear. The double standards that you and your self-proclaimed progressive liberal pals impose on us domestically are just as odorous on an international level. The big difference is that the rest of the world doesn't swallow the propaganda churned out by your buddies in the press as easily as does your American proletariat. I wish I could claim credit for the following quote, but it was not me who said it first. And I quote, Barack Obama brought his marbles, but Vladimir Putin is playing chess. The scariest part of this whole affair is that we have 3 more years of this narcissistic foreign policy amateur at the helm of our ship of state. God help us.